Welcome to the Market Mindset. We are the hub for news, results, and CEO interviews focusing the junior commodities sector. We provide market analysis and perspective that will help position you for solid returns. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can help support us by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the notification bell. For more info, you can visit our website. All links are in the description below. Now let's get into today's video.
Happy Friday, everyone. Definitely challenging times, a challenging week. Lots of doom and gloom. No one likes to have that message. It's never fun, but I think we can all recognize that we're in it. I've been going on about, the Great Depression, Roaring '20s rolled into one, the kind of doom and gloom for a couple of years now. Even talked about it again here at VRIC. We called it the crazy years, which was a French term for the Roaring '20s. And we see this, for some people, the last year and a half of money printing made them a lot of money. They've handed it back now, but we're into it now. We're into the pain factor now. And, whether you want to look at the markets, cryptocurrencies lost a couple $1 trillion. So they weren't correlated in any way with gold of being a safety or a place, because quite frankly, the promises that it has made, they're not true. And at the end of the day, if one believes in what the UN, BlackRock, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, World Economic Forum, if you believe in what they're trying to pull off and what they're trying to do, and they seem to be, it's Biden's plan, it's certainly Justin's plan, it's the EU's plan of shifting to more non-fossil fuel, renewable energy. That's kind of our whole basis of what we are going off of. There's a lot of pain to go through, and it's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, that's been evidenced obviously in the market this week with the way things have kind of turned sideways. And I think for anyone in North America, at least, heard both central banks in the United States and obviously the Federal Reserve the Federal Reserve in the United States and the Central Bank of Canada have both come out and said, yeah, we're going to be hiking interest rates. We're going to be dialing things up. It's probably going to be the most aggressive fiscal policy that we're going to see out of either entity in a very long time. And it is. It's essentially the goal is going to be to spark a mini recession to stave off the big one. But, who knows if that's actually going to be the direction that things go.
Well, that is the big question is, will it be a depression? There's no doubt we're going to have a recession. I mean, I think it's arguably we're already in it already because they've been revising the data for the last quarters and pulling it back, then pulling it back. This is the problem with government economic data is they're constantly revised. So imagine trying to model a portfolio or model your macro whenever the numbers coming in are constantly revised. Your data is not correct. So the model you have, you get the number, and then 3 months later, that number is not accurate. How can you anticipate that? I think most of the smart money, they do anticipate that whatever's coming in, probably not true, probably not accurate. And unfortunately, because we live in such a period of time in which politics, and I don't mean politics, I mean social issues and playing the political card makes that much of a difference. It makes reality and fact finding out the window. And, I have a huge rant that we're going to post as a blog, soon, because a lot of this stuff doesn't have to be a political agenda. There's going to be no doubt that energy, oil and gas, is going to have an amazing year. I mean, it's the only sector up. I think it's up 28%. This is also part of our unintended consequences talk we had 6 months ago and on with coal. I would never support coal because that one is very dirty, and that's what Germany's using right now. It's what the third world and China and India have been using and will continue to use. Believe me, they're not following any mandates that they're preaching to us. And this is the hypocrisy of the political movement that you see over here. And it's unfortunate that's the case. And I kind of liken it to, I'm not a big fan of Hillary Clinton or the Clintons in general. I would never call her stupid, though. She's brilliant. And even if she would pull back some of the ridiculous wokeism stuff and said, okay, I have a plan to make this green thing, this green idea a reality. I've got it mapped out.
Yeah.
I would listen. I would be interested. I would go, okay, well, what is it? The issue is there's no one competent in the West right now that has a plan, and that's evident right now. I know I'm being a bit harsh, but part of it is just simply that they don't know that mining is the key to it, and that they have to have access to the supplies of lithium, of copper, of nickel to make these batteries.
Yeah.
They also may not know that just even if you found it, even if you've got a reserve sitting in the ground, they might think it's kind of like oil and gas. All right, just turn it on. Let's go. Pull it out.
Yeah.
It takes years once you find something. I would even hazard a guess that even if you had the permits and the government on your side and everything else, probably 3 years and a ton of funding. You'd have to have like exceptionally well funded. And that hasn't happened. They haven't been promoting it. They haven't had a plan. It means nuclear. It means you're going to have a lot of uranium. This is before the issues with Russia. So this isn't a Putin tax. This inflation. It's not a Putin tax like Biden says. And this is the part that pisses me off. Is just be honest. This is mismanagement. Your problems that you have today are political. They're all because of politics. It's because they shut down the world. They caused all the problems. And now we're reaping that destruction. And whether you decide that you like the definition of inflation being, M2, like money supply, where which they did, $9 trillion they printed, or whether you want to look at it as just being the inflation of the price of goods, which is evident across the world right now. It does seem like doom and gloom. There isn't anything optimistic in the forefront. And that's the downside. That's the ugly side. This is, what we've been warning about. This is the issue that we see. We've been talking about it. It was inevitable. And it's going to be painful for a while. That's unfortunately the reality. And we're in the market. I mean, we're in our positions and and we're not, someone could argue it would have been smart to sell off everything and then just sit in the sidelines and wait. Like we're long-term guys. We're happy to sit.
Yeah.
People kind of know our positions. We talk openly about them. Certainly if you're a subscriber, you know what we buy, and we're not really down that much. So, I mean, once again, that's not bragging. That's just because we foresaw that we believed what they are saying. And it's not only just believing what is coming from these big firms, it's watching their actions. I mean, a lot of times someone will say something, they're never going to actually do it. I mean, it's you got to see what they're actually then following up with what they do. But maybe you can jump in here, Austin, because I'll rant too much.
No, and I think the kind of direction that we had thought here is, let's look at what is it going to take to really get this over the line. And you'd had a really interesting conversation where you kind of heard that, look, the example was the electric Ford F-150. And it was to build the electric Ford F-150, the all-in cost is about $100,000. Now they're selling this thing for between 55 to 60 grand kind of.
Yeah, we've got two articles that we can pull up here. So these are cool trucks. Yeah, they're very cool. And this would be all electric. It was just that the person who will remain nameless, who's an analyst, said that their understanding was the all-in cost to make one of these is $100,000. Now, depending on the year and model and everything else, I think they're trying to sell them at $59,000. They're at 54.7. Plus, there's all the extras and there's tax and everything else. I mean, it's so. That's
probably US, which is basically like $300,000 Canadian. So.
Yeah, and these are very cool. And once again, we've got nothing against electric. We love it. We're all in favor of doing this electric thing. But here's the problem. I mean, that all-in cost then is reflected in the next article, where it shows, as of I think it was yesterday, Ford has a loss of $3.2 billion for the quarter.
Yeah.
And they're saying it's because of inflation and because of their electric side. Now, inflation, because the cost of everything has gone through the roof, including lithium, including the resources, including the shipping containers, the supply chain, all of that, and that's a direct result of shutting down the world for a couple of years when we know now there was no need to. And people can get upset as much as they want with me. I don't really care. I think, I try not to read too much into it, but this is the reality. That shutting down, we have to deal with and contend with. That is the ripple effect that's going to come forward here. And that loss they're saying that has to be made up somewhere. So there's going to have to be some sort of grant from the government or subsidy or something, or otherwise it's not going to work. And we see that because of such terrible planning, this crisis in energy, once again, this is before Russia, Ukraine, that the energy crisis was coming. Europe was already having issues before the war started, and Germany was refusing to do nuclear. They're open to it now again. They're the main users of coal now, yet they have been touting being the greenest place on earth. This is what happens when you have politics and you don't have the best and brightest. And this isn't, and you can pick on either side. If you're a politician, your job is to stay in power. You generally aren't an expert in any field of anything. And you also, they're obviously getting their direct info from the groups that they like. They're, whether it's Europe or a progressive, they're all in for this WEF plan. They're all in.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I say, okay, some of it's not fine. That's a whole other, discussion.
A whole other argument. Yeah.
Yeah. And when people don't like to hear it, but if you want to know where that wokeism came from, that's ESG. So if you want to know where this big Bolshevik kind of ideology has come from, and people go on about how it's these new ideas and these progressive ideas, these are not new. They're not progressive. They've been done and tried before. It's the same kind of rhetoric you've heard before all throughout history. It's just, unfortunately, people don't read a lot of history.
Yeah.
So there's nothing new in these plans. I mean, they've been tried before, and we're for it. Hey, listen, let's try some of it, not the social stuff, not the governance stuff, but some of the environmental stuff. If we want to make this push, then you're going to need to have exceptionally competent people. And in the West, I think everyone can agree we do not have exceptionally competent people running anything. And that's that's with Justin. I mean, he has an approval rating when he got elected of 20-something%, and Biden somewhere around 30. So even their own supporters are not really excited about the way things are going.
No, absolutely. And I think another kind of demonstration of that has been the response in Ukraine. And I know there was an article from Bloomberg earlier this week that was quoting insider White House sources that essentially said, we had no idea the fallback from these sanctions was going to be this bad. And I remember sending that to you and just kind of half jokingly, I said, do you think that they're this stupid, or do they really just think that the general population is that stupid that they believe that they had no clue this was going to be the blowback? Because
they probably don't have. They probably don't have any clue, and the average person wouldn't have any clue. And I mean, just because we love to research this stuff, you shouldn't expect the average person. The average person isn't really excited about investing. They don't know how things work. But that's the unfortunate problem we have. Is that we have a media that's bought by the government that instead of educating people, it's there to dumb down people. And then if you're trying to, it's easier to dumb down a population. And that's what leftism is. It's about mollifying, or especially communism, is that to bring it down to make everyone equal on a low end. It's a lot harder to raise up people and to educate them, because that costs a ton of money. It takes so much to do that. So if you want an authoritarian regime, it's better to go the other way. And that's a very negative way to look at things, but that's kind of a very general what happens. And whenever you push things as far as they're pushing as well, the scary thing is you have a reverberation of the exact opposite of they're pushing this wokeism, this far extreme left stuff. They're creating their Nazis as they do that. They're creating a far right that wants no part of it. And that's a whole other discussion and conversation. But removing all that politics, we should all be able to get along and say, as far as it comes to fiscal responsibility for dealing with inflation, and if we're going to do this whole shift in energy, there's going to be a transition period. So let's get the oil and gas guys pumping right now and get them. And they're already investing in green stuff. So, I mean, it's not that they're not. They have been for a while. but give them a bit of a buffer, and then then we're switching to hydrogen. We're going to switch to with all the copper, and then incentivize the resource countries to get those resources. Now they're starting to do it. You see it in Reuters more and more often. There is a pact now between the US and Canada in regards to critical metals, but they also probably didn't realize the time frame in mining isn't oil and gas. If you find something or you've got a reserve, you can, given you've got the loans from banks and whatnot, you can turn things on. Takes a bit of time, takes a bit of money, but that's not mining. Mining takes years to get a mine going.
Yeah, and there has to be that shift in that understanding and the wrapping your head around that concept that if you want to do this, you have to start. Well, you have to start years ago, really. But you got to start now, not this. Okay, well, do we need to? Can we go back and forth in this hoeing and humming about it? Like, you have to take some real initiative and attack after it. And I know I saw the Canadian government's going to be spending another $9 billion on their affordability plan to tackle inflation, which is essentially just going to increase inflation further unless you're getting 1% interest rate hikes per quarter from the Bank of Canada, which I guess could be something that they would decide to do. But it shows that rather than targeting these, rather than, and it's probably an indictment of the entire way the political system in the West works, is rather than channeling this money to tackle actual problems, they're channeling money to tackle these flagship kind of goals and ideals for something that they can run on in the next election to say, oh, but we gave $1 billion to this and we gave
to a program and to an NGO and we did this social program. Yeah. And it's money gone.
Rather than saying, hey, we're going to take $9 billion. We're actually going to pump it right into where it needs to go to make this happen. And I think it is. We've created this cycle, and you see it in the U.S. as well. And it's a recent one. It's a touchy one, but the gun debate in the U.S. recently, it's been going on for decades, but neither side really actually wants to change anything because it's constantly going to be an issue that they're going to run on. The Democrats will always be able to run on the side of saying, we need to tighten gun restrictions. We need gun control. We need to stop having all these mass shootings. And the Republicans are always going to be able to run on the side of the Democrats want to take your guns from you. And there's always going to be that. No one actually really wants to try to change anything or tackle it in the right way because they're able to use that issue every time that they have to go to the polls to drum up a voter base.
Yeah, and those days are fine when you have that kind of political difference or ideology difference. If you've got competent people running the economy properly.
Exactly.
And we don't have that right now. We have idealists that are pushing a belief system and they're not competent. And that's the problem we face right now. Your problem isn't a Putin tax. It's got nothing to do with Putin. It's government incompetency. And I don't care which side it would be on. I would call it on either side. I'm not telling anyone to vote a certain way. I don't, the damage is already done. We're going to be in it for a bit. Now, that being said, the shift, though, is what we kind of have outlined in the market model mindset is now more than ever, because we're in it isn't a time to get distracted, panic, depressed. Now's a time to work extra hard and to do the things in your everyday to make your life stronger, better, your family's life stronger, better. Ignore all the noise because it's too easy. The gun debate is noise. I mean, it sounds harsh and it sounds cruel, but it's a non-issue right now. If you've got the problems we're facing today, where in 2025 there'll be some serious bankruptcies in the housing market if things continue, then you've got real problems. And these other political issues, hot topics, even now, even in CNN, Anderson Cooper's head kind of turned around 300 degrees, while one of his friends comes on and kind of says, here's the wet red wave that's coming in November. We've lost it because even abortion is a non-issue compared to inflation and the economy.
Food prices, gas prices.
Prices.
And those are always going to trump whatever. I mean, for a vast majority of the population, those are always going to trump whatever social issue or cause you're leading for. And those, it's great to have those if that's something you care about. But at the end of the day, a majority of the population is going to see $5 a gallon gas prices in the U.S. and go, oh my God, we have to fix this.
And you have to remember the majority of North Americans. The wealth was pushed up to 0.1%. It isn't spread around a 5% middle class. That's gone.
Yeah.
Most people are just fighting tooth and nail to get by, even during this heyday of the stock market where people were making money in the stock market. That wasn't a lot of individuals. So most people are just getting by. And now that you've got inflation, which is basically ripping apart some poor people that have saved for 50 years to have a bit of a bank account, that's getting torn apart and getting eaten away. And that's, once again, that's your government has done that to you. It isn't, greedy corporate, please. It isn't. Your government has done that to you. And there are solutions to get out. That being said, there was an interesting article where it's, I think, Austin, you brought it up, where it's 72% of Gen Zs.
Yeah, 72. And I thought this was kind of interesting. So Gen Z is people that are born between 1997 and 2012. And they're the most optimistic financially generation that is out there.
Yeah.
Some number, let me just pull up these numbers here. So, yeah, 72% of them believe they'll be rich one day. 44% of respondents believe that they're going to become wealthy at some point in their lifetime. That's all respondents. So 72% of just Gen Zers think, yeah, I'm going to do it, versus 44% of the average general population. So I thought that was very interesting. And the article kind of makes this point of saying, a lot of these Gen Zers who have acquired wealth recently have acquired it through the stock market, through some meme kind of stock plays. Maybe it was GameStop, maybe it was the ARK investment ETF, maybe it was, some kind of crypto moonshot stuff that blew up there. But they kind of have developed this belief that this is the way it's always going to be, that's the way that the markets are always going to function for them. And that, it'll be easy because even if this one doesn't hit right now, well, there'll be the next one and that one will hit. And it's what happens when you have an investment strategy that doesn't really base itself on a lot of real stuff. And that's not taking a shot at the GameStop people, because there was a lot of real stuff to that. Then as soon as the retail side really caught a stranglehold on it, that's when fundamentals went completely out the window, and it was a bunch of diamond hand legends holding on for dear life. But it's interesting to see that this generation kind of thinks that investing is a better strategy than home ownership, which right now, I mean, if you want to look at the housing market, sales being down 22% in Canada just in the last month, we're going to see a massive cooling off in that. That'll be that could be a viable strategy, but you have to have within that strategy, it has to be more than just, I'm going to throw something at at this Dogecoin and hope for the best. Which, funny enough, actually, I read this morning. Elon is getting sued in a Dogecoin lawsuit, interestingly enough. So we'll see how that. I'm sure nothing big will come out of it, but that's just an interesting tidbit to keep your eyes on as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I like a lot of stuff that Elon Musk does, and I've talked to friends about this, is that there should be, and I don't know enough about the Dogecoin thing, that should be at least investigated to some extent, because that, I mean, it looks ridiculous. But you don't know with him what he's up to. Now, of course, there's an active campaign against Elon Musk now everywhere, because he's come out against a lot of these initiatives, and he should, because a lot of these ESG initiatives are just Bolshevism. They really are. And people don't know even what that term means, because they're not exactly sure and they're not taught it. But it literally is. So there should be a pushback to a lot of these big initiatives, because they're not going to work. It's going to be nothing but disaster. And we need to find a middle ground again. Like, we need to get back to an actual open market. You need to get rid of a lot of these predatory capitalists. So don't, make no mistake. I know it's ugly out there, what they did pushing, the money to these globalist elite. But that being said, the 72% of those young ones, you can. I'm going to say you have a chance right now. And I'm going out on a limb here, but I'm that confident. If you believe that they're going to do this shift, if you believe in this energy shift, you think that they're serious and they're going to put this money towards it, that means mining. So when the mining sector goes, it's an asymmetric gain. And this is kind of what we've been preaching and pitching, whether it's 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, the amount of material required to do this. And it's not coming from China. It's not going to, and it's not coming from Russia. And you shouldn't want it to come from China. I'm sorry. I'm not anti-Chinese. I think Chinese, history and culture and philosophy is incredible. But that's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the Communist Chinese Party. That
you shouldn't want to be dependent on another.
You don't want that.
State, a foreign adversary to have control over your supply chain.
And here's the hypocrisy with the ESG thing is that they don't even come remotely close to any standards of environmentalism, social welfare, governing people in the right way. It's nuts. So this is the hypocrisy you deal with the ESG side. And the progressive movement is that you'll just get it from China and everything will be fine. No, you need to you need to find some supply chain right now. And that investment should have happened 3 years ago, but it hasn't, but it's going to. And we're seeing more of it. We saw, Ford come in to a lithium deal. You're going to see a lot more of that. And if you want to be in that kind of phase to really make intergenerational wealth, that, once again, if you believe in that thesis, that's how it's going to happen. Now, in the meantime, you're going to make lots of money in the energy sector, oil and gas. You're going to. It's an unintended consequences of poor management by government. This isn't because of bad, terrible markets and greedy capitalists. It's because of what the government has done in the course of 2 or 3 years. So right now, more than ever, I have to listen to a lot of this stuff, and it's infuriating. And it's, politicians need to keep themselves in power. I mean, that's just their job. And they might even be doing it with the best understanding that they have and the information. I would never want to be a leader of a country. You have to kind of know something about everything and hope that your advisors are giving you good information. Especially since you probably never were an expert in any of them ever. It's so I'm not, I try to be as fair as I can to them, that it's a very difficult situation to be in, especially when you have this many issues. And more than anything right now, people should be kind of coming together, leave some of these ridiculous ideologies away and think, how do we make our country stronger? How do we make it better for our communities, for everyone, to simmer this down and give especially a younger generation who's coming up some hope? And that is coming from, if you align your money towards metals and mining to get these things so that we can have the chips, we can have the ledger system, the 5G technology, all the electric future. That was only coming one way. And now is the best way for you to start looking and to find the companies that are going to create that future.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll segue us out of here by saying, if you want to know what some of those companies are, we're going to have our quarterly newsletter for June coming out at the start of next week.
Yes.
So make sure you're signed up. Brilliant job, Adam, putting up the website right there. Make sure you're signed up. The quarterly newsletter will be coming out on Monday next week. It's going to have our insights. And obviously, some people know companies that are going to be in there. I don't think it's a spoiler for me to say Desert Mountain's going to be in there. But there's a few good, interesting ones that we're maybe looking at again that we'd looked at before and said, hey, there's a buying opportunity here. Really interesting place. A couple really new ones. One that's actually a very old one. And I won't give away any spoilers other than that. But if you want to know where we see things channeling towards, newsletter is going to come out next week. It's got a lot of our top picks in it. It can start to point you in the right direction and get you thinking about where you can channel some money and find some opportunities that are really gonna grow when this mining boom cycle goes. And like you said, it could be right around the corner.
Yes. And also we're updating the course, the Market Model Mindset. For those of you who have bought it before, the updated changes we'll send to you anyway. But we're also going to drop that cost down a ton because we're facing the level of inflation. And for me, I would rather get that out to people, just to cover costs, basically. We haven't decided what that price point will be, but it's going to be pretty low. And it's a lot of information in there. It's pretty long. And we always wanted to make sure that we give away too much information. And we'd rather that because we really are sitting in a pivotal period of time. And if we can kind of help to change someone's life, to give them a bit of hope, a bit of something to focus their brain on and get more educated and get prepped. Because this pain might last 3 months, 6 months, a year. I think the average market, bearish market, I was looking at some data before, and I'll just wrap this up with this, was bear markets in the past, I think they've lasted 10 and a half months. That's on average. So we're in one, and now and that might last, and maybe it lasts a year. So we've got some time. I don't think I hope it doesn't, especially for the mining sector, because if they're going to pull us off, they're going to do it now. They have to start going now. So we want to get this course out to people. And we want to make sure that we're reaching people and reaching this message. And once again, we try to not to alienate people as far as political beliefs, but just focus on if you want to see that future, how do I get there? And this course helps you.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're signed up to receive the quarterly newsletter, you'll get updates on the kind of second revision of the course, what we'll be putting that out and all the ways you can access it and stuff. So have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you, Andrew. It's great as always. And we'll be back to chat to you next week. We've got a great guest lined up next Friday that I'm excited for. So a recurring guest, but we're looking forward to it. So we'll chat to you guys next week. Take care, Andrew. Have a good one.